Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Occult Podcast, where we do, or at least talk about inadvisable things in the name of magical science. I am, as always, Tyler Cadmian, aka Shadow, and with me is...
Felix Smokin' Warren.
Yes! So, we're going to have a bit of a variety episode this time. Why do you say you're smoking?
Smoking! I'm a big fan of the mask. Also, I am smoking an herbal blend right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's made of kitchen herbs, basically. And this is something that we actually do every podcast. We just don't really talk about it much. We haven't talked about it, at least. Basically, I make custom herbal cigarettes all of the time. I just take a little pre-roll cone and I put whatever needs to go in it, and they are for, recently I've basically just been mixing them for whatever it is that we're doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, we started coordinating the herbals with whichever demons were being channeled or coming around the house or whatever, basically whenever they were showing up a lot.
Yeah.
And also we've been able to actually kind of smoke around here, and so it made more sense to do it anyway. One of the things I noticed early was I picked different herbs for different ones of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do the rolling.
Yeah.
They'll make an herbal or something. And it's been really interesting to see the differences and also the commonalities.
Yeah. I should ask, what are you smoking right now?
So this one I made specifically for our special guest today, who is a new guest that the audience has not met yet.
Yes.
And this one is primarily rosemary and basil.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of thyme. And those seem like they would be overwhelmingly savory, but they're combined. There's a bit of ground clove, some rose petals, and some dried mandarin orange peels.
Mm-hmm.
And together, it's really mild.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. We have been going through the hawthorn leaves a lot lately, and those are a bit harsh on the back of the throat.
Yeah.
But this one's been surprisingly mild.
Yeah, I think that the rosemary makes a good alternative to hawthorn.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like hawthorn, but I need to dry out some new leaves and get some more some stuff. I need more leaves. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to go do another harvesting run. But yeah, so it's very interesting to see, because there's times where entities will come up, Rob's got his preferences, Mantis has got his, others have got their own, and they're often just looking at the blend that someone else has left behind and yeah, no, I'm gonna mix something else. So
yeah, sometimes one of them or myself will take the pre-roll that is already left behind and just kind of untwist the top, dump it out, add some different herbs in.
Yeah.
Which I think really shows the flexibility of what it is we're doing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's just really, sorry, I'm reaching for something because I forgot my notes. It's just really interesting to see what preferences sort of align with stuff that we've already learned about them. You're fixing the audio. There we go.
Yeah, I forgot to turn the fan off. Sorry. Now I'm setting everything on fire.
Oh no. Don't set yourself on fire. Please.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about smoking, but like clothes should not be smoking.
No, they should not. Everybody, practice good safety whenever you're doing any of this, and always notice whether something is smoldering or not. It's a very important detail to know.
So one of the things when I was doing a bit of research, because rosemary is one of the newer herbs that we've been adding, it's actually good for like relaxation. So if we're a little bit quiet on this episode, it's because we're chill.
Yeah. A lot of the herbs that I pick are good for relaxation, but this blend in particular, it's very interesting. Like, I guess like our guest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spoil. Our guest will talk about their preferences. Because, like, I basically sat down and rolled this thinking, okay, our guest is going to be so-and-so. What would be a good...
This is what they prefer. Yeah.
Well, actually, this is the first time I've really made a blend for this guest.
Oh, really?
So, I want to talk about, like, I don't know everything. When I sit down and put these blends together, usually I just, like, have a feeling. It's like, hey, grab the thyme, shake that in. This time you want to put in a bunch of peppermint.
Mm-hmm.
Right now would be a good place to put chamomile in. Like sometimes I put entheogens in like mugwort, and sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I sat down for this one, like as soon as I thought about it, I realized I needed to get up into the kitchen and open up the spice cabinet and grab a couple things that I usually don't have in the smoking herbs kit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the rosemary and basil. I've never put them in a mix before.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't find much information on basil besides the fact that, like, yeah, you can smoke it. It's not going to have any major ill effects. But rosemary apparently is supposed to be relaxing. Supposed to have carophylline, though I'm sure they're probably talking about beta carophylline because they were talking about the cannabinoid receptors.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be beta carophylline then, because that's the one that it boosts CBD or THC.
Yeah, basically
if you take them together.
Yeah. And then the other one is carophylline oxide, which is more of an uplifting one. And if they're talking about relaxation, then it's probably going to be beta carophylline.
Yeah. So, like, one of the things that we do look at is the terpenes that exist in these herbs. If you're not familiar with what terpenes are, do you want to talk about terpenes?
So, terpenes are basically, or flavonoids, a lot of different terms for them, though terpene seems to be like a more accepted term, especially if you start getting into the cannabis side of things. But basically it is the flavors that make the herb more, or whatever, more well known. Like limonene is a very well known one, and it's in the peels of pretty much any citrus. That's part of the reason why you put in mandarin peels, is because limonene is that citrusy, zesty taste that you get. Any sort of like cannabis strains that have lemon in their name is probably going to have limonene, and that's very well known as a mood enhancer, uplifter, anti-anxiety. That's why sometimes if you're dealing with like anxiety when it comes to taking cannabis, you're like having anxiety, sometimes they'll say, you know, like pop a lemon candy in your mouth, or take a sniff of a lemon. That's supposed to help introduce those terpenes that help with that anti-anxiety. So we just skip the cannabis and go straight to the source, and just add the mandarin peels in directly, and that's an example of a terpene that we use.
Yeah, when it comes to cannabis, I mean, we have definitely combined that with demons, and they don't disagree with it or anything. I will say that with cannabis, there's a upside and a downside.
Mm-hmm.
The upside, you're getting that THC and probably CBD. And anytime you have painkillers, if there's any kind of pain you're having, especially pain you're not aware of,
Yeah.
those painkillers will dramatically uplift you.
Yeah.
So that's, always going to be a benefit. But with THC, because it's an entheogen, it's like got hallucinatory properties. Not always hallucinatory. What we call it, psychoactive.
Psychoactive.
So it activates your psychic and psychological stuff up in your brain. Helps you process things. Helps some things get processed that don't normally get processed.
Yeah.
And I thought about this because we've been seeing some local beavers take down some local trees lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I love trees, but I love seeing what's behind the trees.
Yeah.
And they do call cannabis little trees a lot of times. And I was thinking, it's like, well, what is it that I'm seeing and perceiving now that I don't have the cannabis? 'Cause,
right.
The entheogens do help sometimes. They do help perceive a lot of things that I don't normally perceive. But sometimes when I'm perceiving those things that I don't normally perceive, I miss other stuff.
Right.
So right now this one doesn't have cannabis in it, and maybe there's some stuff that our guest would be able to access or reach or whatever with that, but we're gonna find out by default what is there. See what's there without the tree in front of it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, because that's one of the things with any sort of psychoactive, whether it be mugwort, whether it be wormwood, whether it be cannabis, whether it be mushroom,
Psilocybin.
Yeah.
And disclaimer, I already have a mugwort wormwood mix in the cider that I'm drinking right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm clean or anything. It's just cannabis in particular.
Yeah.
That THC is definitely more powerful than mugwort. Definitely more powerful than wormwood. I'd say the only thing more powerful than THC that I've had in particular is salvia. And that one straight up makes you see fractals.
Yeah. So, basically, the THC does help, but it also can introduce some blinds in that, you can get so caught up in the psychoactive effects that you don't actually recognize the thing that's actually going on. Or there may be something, because, our brains are amazing, and they can do a lot of things, and there could be some kind of hallucinatory effect where it's like something you see vividly could have just been your brain trying to interpret psychic signals for you.
One thing I've really been gaining an understanding of is that THC helps me process things that normally I couldn't process or couldn't handle, and sometimes those things are things I need to get to stop.
Yeah.
So without the THC, it's like, oh no, I can't deal with this. Wait, I can't deal with this. Maybe I need to figure out what part of this it is that I can't deal with and change that.
Right. Yeah. That's very important. So, yeah. Anyways, we just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And
I want to talk about the blends that I've made for, say, Rob and Mantis.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Rob and Mantis's blends are actually pretty interchangeable. I like most of the particulars between them are like slight mood differences or flavor preferences.
Yeah.
But with their smoking blends, with what it is that I have handy, it's usually about the same thing. I'd say I put more chamomile in Mantis's mix sometimes. But both of them prefer relaxation and anti-anxiety stuff.
Now, when you're getting these herbs, like you mentioned, you pulled some out of our kitchen cabinet, so that's definitely a good place to get it. I actually, honestly, I recommend culinary herbs above like herb shop herbs.
Yeah.
Because when you're dealing with food grade, they have to take out a certain amount of stems and, you know, other things. Whereas if you're buying something from like an herbal shop, they're gonna leave stems in everything. Like, if they don't have to process it out, they're not going to. I mean, there's some stuff that you can only get from, like, an herbal shop or, like, one of those kind of shops. But, like, for anything that has a food-grade equivalent, just buy it from the grocery store.
I found it so funny. We got some mugwort from the herbarium, and we got some mugwort from a smoke shop online.
Yes.
And the mugwort from the smoke shop online was almost unsmokable.
Yes.
It had so many stems in it. It was so hard to put it into a roll paper without it punching through the paper and putting a big hole in the cig. It was actually pretty ridiculous.
And I mean, we do have a local herbarium that is really great, but when you're comparing like lemon balm or anything like that you can buy in a store, they're not going to process out twigs and stuff because they're expecting that you're probably going to use that in like either an incense blend or in a tea blend, something that it can stand up with the twigs.
So for peppermint and chamomile, I just buy like Celestial Seasonings peppermint.
Yeah.
You don't have to get too fancy here. It doesn't have to be the highest grade stuff. In fact, the best mint that we've smoked thus far was mint that was from the store.
Yep.
And then I dried that up in some netting and then just would take a leaf and crumple it over the mix, and it was the freshest mint ever because it was literally fresh mint.
Yeah. So, you know, if you have a grocery store that sells a little living basil or living mint, even like in the gardening center, there's been times where like, I mean, we haven't done this too much for like smoking, but there's been times where they've been out of dill in the produce section, so we've gone to the gardening section and just bought a live dill.
Yeah. And all of these, like, very easy to smoke. The thyme is actually the sleeper herb, in my opinion.
Oh, my goodness,
I was not expecting that to be so palatable.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find you need to mix it with something, but if you combine thyme and peppermint, that pretty much counters, like, the weird savory taste of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Definitely, like, do your homework. If it's not something that you can ingest, like, you know, with, like, food and stuff, then definitely double check and make sure that it's okay to, like, smoke. Or if it's, like, you want to make sure to, like, only smoke the leaves or only smoke the flower, you know, avoid what you need to. Anything that, like, our smoking blends, we can make into tea blends very easily, and we've done that before. Like, we've switched back and forth. Teas are usually better if you want more, like, prolonged effects. Smoking, I've noticed, is very, like, instant, but doesn't, like, last as long, I guess.
So smoking, it goes straight into the mucous membranes of your lungs, so the intake is instantaneous and it goes directly in your bloodstream. But when you drink something or you eat something, it goes into your digestive system, and and that will release to you over time because it's like in a slower system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really like edibles when it comes to the cannabis stuff.
Right.
It doesn't really release into my system in a consistent way, and it's often upsets my stomach.
Yeah, because your stomach has to process that. There's a lot of, like, oil and cannabis, like, concentrate essentially in there that your stomach and your small intestine have to process, and then it goes to your liver where it decides where it goes next. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, some people just don't do as well with it. So, like, if herbal teas just sort of, like, kind of help, or you have to be careful with certain herbs because it upsets your stomach, you know, smoking is a way. If you are already you know, smoking cannabis or something, then yeah, definitely look into it. I'm not recommending that you start, like, cold turkey smoking if you've never smoked before.
Do it, like, this is all about what your body is comfortable with, and there's times where I just let my body pick the herb. Like, my hand grabs something, and I notice, like, oh, wait, that's actually a pretty good idea. And like, my body made that choice. I've also, like, we've done our research. The reason why these herbs are there to be put into blends is because we already know they can be.
Definitely. We're passing this herbal back and forth, so if there's weird silences, it's because one of us is, or both of us are inhaling.
That's pretty much the case any podcast.
Right?
One of the things I like is that this replaces incense blends.
Yes.
And incense blends are a mess to deal with. It's very easy to keep, like, a cigarette going, but when it comes to incense blends, like, you gotta get a charcoal going and put the stuff on top of it, and incense, like, lasts pretty short.
Yeah, it doesn't last that long. Like, these last pretty good. And plus, it's a lot more personal because it's, like, right near your face instead of, like, away. You know. And I feel like some incenses can get kind of cloying.
Yeah.
Like, they use a lot of essential oils and stuff that can just sort of sit and make almost a miasma effect where it's like, ugh, open a window.
I want something where you can collect the herbs and make it into something like, you know, some of the herbs we have, we get wild, and you can you can pick this, it grows on trees.
Like the hawthorn that we've been talking about, we literally go out and pick it and then we dry it ourselves, unless it's like the fortunate find that we have where they're already pre-dried, except it's been raining like...
That one I'm not using anymore. I'm picking fresh leaves now.
Yeah, because it's been raining cats and dogs out there.
Which... good for everybody's pets. So...
The pet distribution system.
I also feel this allows the spirit to take in the herbs directly. Very, very directly. They get the benefit very directly. And
they also get to choose how much they take in.
Yeah.
With, like, incense that's sort of there whether they want it or not.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck in it. Whereas with this, like, we've had some very interesting experiences with spirits where they've, like, you know, seen the...
Whoops.
That's not a great place
for that.
That
is not a good place for any of that. Technical difficulties! Hooray! Ugh. That is a very important part of my setup.
So, they've seen the SIGs and, like, you know, eyebrow raised or reached for it, and one of us has, like, realized, like, oh, okay, you want some.
Right.
So it's a way for them to opt into this kind of stuff. Just like if you have a drink handy, they can drink that if they want.
Right.
I think that kind of choice is very important. Otherwise, it's being kind of thrust into a situation.
It is. Speaking of thrusting into a situation.
Oh, dear.
Is our guest ready?
Yes, our guest is ready.
Anything else that you'd want to say about the blend that you've specially crafted for them?
No, I'd like the guest to talk about that. I have actually been trying to move us to the part where we bring the guest in.
Cool.
So now we've gotten past the jump scare.
Yes. Jump scare's over. Felix is going to do his prep stuff. I get to show off the new thing that you did. The blank mirror. So.
Y'all get to see the new portrait soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So Felix is doing his thing, getting the our special guest in. We realized that, like, on the visual component, like, having just a blank chair was really weird, so having a blank mirror really helps, and it looks like our guest has settled. Yeah, and we are going to reveal their portraits. Welcome to Bad Occult Podcast. This is your first time on, so I have some questions for you.
I'm so happy to answer these questions.
So, first off, what is your name/nickname that you want to be known by?
I go by Jules.
You go by Jules. And what is your gender identity?
Like, it's very mixed. Right now, I'd say I present as male over here. And where I am, it just doesn't frickin' matter.
It doesn't.
The body that I have and the type of entity that I am physically, gender isn't really a thing.
Right. So, so where are you calling in from?
Same ship as Robin Mantis.
Nice.
It's my ship.
It's your ship.
It is my ship.
You're the owner.
Owner operator.
What do you do?
Since I'm nowhere that anybody can really find, I'll just go ahead and say, I do a bit of cargo hauling.
Cargo hauling.
Yeah, from here to there, in a completely piratical manner.
Ah, gotcha. So a space pirate.
I'm a space pirate.
Nice. You are also, if anyone who is not listening on an audio-only format can probably tell, you have a very non-humanoid portrait.
Yes. Actually, let me go. Whoa!
Yeah.
It's on the wall, so I could see it on the wall. He nailed it.
Yeah.
Fuck. I wasn't expecting him to go all out. I thought he might cartoon it.
No.
Yeah, so that's what I look like. When I look in the mirror, I see that.
See that.
He really likes the antenna. Okay.
They look like moth antenna.
He mentioned that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I'm a bit of an isopod.
Mm-hmm.
I am taller than any human.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess to most humans I would be terrifying.
Gotcha.
Now, I say most humans. I know there's plenty of you out there who aren't automatically afraid of insects.
Mm-hmm.
But,
still, a 7 to 8 foot tall insect that suddenly came into, like, the same room as you would be unsettling.
yeah, most people perceive that as a threat.
Yeah.
And I don't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the only non-human spacefaring species that I've met.
Mm-hmm.
There's more out there. My gosh, move along, cat.
Cats are always terribly interested in you whenever you
Yes.
come around, I have to say.
Yes, he's just a bit distractingly interested,
Yes.
of course. So, yeah. Was that is that the questions that
That's
you
all
usually
the
ask?
questions that I ask. Yeah, the rest of it's just sort of a...
Nice. Well, so this smoking blend is pretty nice. It's the first time I've had it.
Mhm.
It's not that I'm like a complete stranger over here, but I'm not as much of a regular.
Yeah.
So I'm still getting used to some of these cool things that y'all got going.
Yeah. You've been too busy, running your ship, doing your piratey stuff. It's the first time we've had you on the podcast. And
doing
you're
all these...
setting things on fire.
No, it's just something that comes with being in Felix.
Yeah, that's more of a Felix thing. So then my next question is, how is it to basically transition from being in sort of that insectoid body to more of a humanoid anthropomorphic one?
So... well, there's some things I deal with biologically over here that I don't up there, but that's not something I'm unfamiliar with. So, I had a previous life as a human, so I'm already familiar with being human.
Mm-hmm.
As an isopod, there's like a totally different thing going on with us than with human brains and with other things. So, let me figure out where to start. I've got a lot more legs and arms.
Of course.
Now, you know in Beetlejuice, whenever he just turns into a giant beetle and is just kind of like sitting there like, hey, bub?
Yeah.
I look kind of like that
Mm-hmm.
up there, doing, like, picking 2 big legs and 2 big arms as, like, the favorites to mimic the Felix legs and arms.
Gotcha.
And I kind of sit. I can sit. It's a little... I have a big chair.
Yeah.
Nobody else gets the big chair.
Well, I don't think anyone else could fit in the big chair.
No, it's very specialized at this point. So I do a different thing than normal standard human telepathy. And Felix already does a variant on standard human telepathy, so like we're kind of similar in that regard. Human brains, telepathy is kind of in a deep relaxation state. You can take deep thought, not like word thought, but emotions and desires and wills and such, and you can project that outward to other places, and then if you project that to another human brain, that human brain receives that from its deep state of relaxation and then turns it into thought in a higher consciousness level. With me, I don't have to do all that.
Right.
But it's also really different. So, my brain works more like a radio. And so I'm sending a radio signal. And the thing with the radio signal is that my species, the isopod species, is pretty good at interacting with other species with the radio signal. That I have a very good sense of how the... Can you calm him down? He is so distracting.
Go on, Cat.
Go do things. This is not your podcast. Always want some sort of attention from me.
All the perils of live recording.
So, basically, I can sense the receptor brain and sort of how open it is to the radio signal, and that allows me to modulate it to make it safe for the receptor brain. Radio is a very dangerous signal. It can be very, very hot, literally.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're able to sort of... Sounds sort of like almost an echolocation sort of thing, where you can sort of tell how receptive someone is to the radio waves that you put out.
Yeah. Now, I will say that this is a long-distance send, which is different than a close range. At close range, it's much more particular. I have to be very refined. But with long range, there is something similar to human telepathy. Long-distance human telepathy isn't just telepathy. There's something that kind of folds time over a bit, so you don't have to worry about the distance thing.
Right.
And I've got that too, but it's applying that to the radio type signal. And it's very handy, like with the ship stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So how... I have, like, so many different questions that I have to decide which one I want to ask next. So then, you say you identify as, like, male in this body with Felix. Is that because of your previous human life?
My previous human life was actually female.
Oh, really?
And I don't really have a whole lot of that retained. My current personality is sort of a result of me kind of taking possession of my isopod self, and there was a while where I was just receiving human signals. I was like near enough to Earth that I was getting your TV and such, and just having kind of a unfolding isopodic awareness of myself. It was a little weird. I'm not standard for my species. Most of my species does not previously have a human life. Most of them just incarnate isopod forever. So the isopods are largely hive-minded, and so I'm not just one bug. I there's a main bug that I kind of associate as mine and me.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have that one, I could be another one, but it would be kind of in my squad. And so I can actually reproduce without another bug. And it doesn't.
Asexually?
Yeah, asexually. And so I don't really have a gender in the isopod body. It's a species that is able to self-propagate under some of the most dire of conditions. Like, we're real survivors.
Right.
So you end up with, like, kind of a whole hive of, like, everybody thinks in one pack.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a couple of them that have different tasks and such, like an anthill. You would have the worker ants going and doing things, but ultimately they all answer to one ant.
Right.
Which would be in the worker ant. In the anthill's case, it would be the queen ant.
Right.
There's no gender when it comes to the isopods, so there's less diversification. There's just a bunch of little guys who all, over time, get bigger.
Gotcha. Yeah. So then I'm guessing your crew is all of your little guys, which means that you probably wouldn't have to worry too much about a mutiny.
Yeah, for the most part. The isopods are not really designed to resist hive mind status. You might feel like I'm the one who ended up on top, but you must understand that all the other guys are also me.
Right.
So it's just me. There's some differentiation. I've been, like, experimenting with this over time and learning about it. I've talked with somebody else who has a bit of multi-mind experience, and it's kind of helped me refine a bit of what I do. Mm-hmm. Since I'm a little bit unique among isopods, I kind of can just decide how it is that I do things and go from there. The rest of the species is gonna, go do stuff, whatever.
Right. That's really awesome and fascinating, to be honest. Like, I've been wanting to get you on the podcast because, like, your experience is so interesting to me. And it's also, like, something that I wanted to talk about when it comes to, like, these kind of summonings, in that, like, not every entity that you're going to be talking to is anthropomorphic in any way, shape, or form.
And we're cosmic entities. We come from the cosmos. Lots of stuff is alive in the cosmos.
Yeah.
Like, I've debated before coming here, and also, like, as I'm speaking, like, just how much to really say. And, like, I mean, think of Men in Black.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. You just don't see it.
Yeah. No, I think that's very interesting. And then, like, interacting, I'm sure you've interacted with other, like, humans besides just Felix and I. And, like, I'm kind of curious, like, if you've seen people react or change how they interact with you before and after they find out that you are not, like, a humanoid alien like they probably might have been picturing.
So, I do have a little bit memory of summons. It can go in and out since that's such a subconscious thing.
Right.
They largely just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some times where they've expected me to act in a certain way, and I just didn't, or I remember human stuff, and I can usually do it, but I'm a little slower on it, or maybe not as up to date. But usually that's covered up with the fact that a lot of people assume that demons come from, like, a big fiery place,
Right.
And that there's some kind of weird celestial spooky stuff going on. So I've kind of been able to not be outed as a big bug.
Yes, so this is sort of your coming out moment. So then, segue into more of the goetic side of things, because you do also identify with a goetic entity, which we're not going to give specifics about. How much of that interaction are you aware of?
Um, on the one hand, quite a bit on a certain level, because I've got my whole hive.
Right.
I have sort of a lot of selves that I'm always aware of already. And so I can always perceive those different selves doing things. And on the very crest of that, on the very edge, perception of other selves of mine that are not in the bugs also doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Of being like other places, other times, other entities.
So,
sometimes I get stuff from my human life.
So it sounds like you definitely have more of a fifth dimensional awareness, and that you are aware of other parallel past, present, future lives that aren't in your little bug circle.
I think that hive mentality kind of is a fifth dimensional awareness already. It's like if you had alternate lives inside of one reality. And so when you've already got that, then you to add more on top is almost nothing in terms of effort. Once you can already do the cognition with over 50 different selves in one place, it's just... I feel like reaching fifth dimensional consciousness is a barrier that you get past in terms of, like, it's just hard to think that way. Once you've already done that, it's not really a barrier you cross anymore.
Gotcha.
That being said, I'm always fifth dimensional all the time now.
Yeah.
I'm always a bunch of people.
Yeah.
The singular existence, I don't have as much anymore, and that might mean that I don't have as much of a fourth dimensional awareness as, say, there are human crew on board.
Yes.
You've met a couple.
Yeah. And just like having that perspective is very interesting to me, is just being aware of like so many different bodies just moving around on the same ship, and just not even having to extend a lot of effort to, like, say if there was a problem in engineering, for example. Everyone always uses that as an example for space stuff. You don't even really have to like devote more than just maybe a thought or two to like whoever's already fixing it, because from, I guess, like, some of this is just my assumption, so I should ask, like, if one of your, I don't really know what to say it, like, bug selves notice a problem, like, say, there's a fuel leak or something, are all of you aware of it at the same time, essentially?
I mean, there's like a tiny bit of the nearest bug sensed it first, but otherwise it's like all aware at once, which really helps for coordination.
Yeah, like you don't have to waste time getting on the radio or anything. It's just like, oh, someone's already going to the storage to get the parts to fix it or whatever. Which is interesting to me.
Like, I was running the ship on my own with all my selves for a while before human crew came on board. And whenever the human crew came on board, there was like a transition period for a while where I was simply continuing to just do all the work without even really talking to them about it. And then eventually I was like, oh yeah, so I'm doing a fuel rotation right now. If anybody's interested in watching that, or anybody wants to know what radiation they shouldn't be around and when. But like, there's so many tasks that are just routine that like some of me / us are just kind of constantly doing them, and it's really no problems. Like, you have cells in your body, you have organs in your body, your stomach's doing its thing all the time.
Yeah.
Without really complaining. It does that thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And so it's very similar with the various parts of me. They're just, ones that can walk around.
Right. So, to get into more off-the-wall topics, so as an isopod, obviously you don't have lungs like humans do, so you can't really smoke,
Yeah.
So, like, do you have any, like, recreational drugs or anything like that that, like, affects you as a bug self that you'd be willing to talk about? Like, can you alter your perceptions?
Altering consciousness.
Yeah.
So this is something that Mantis and I talk about quite a lot already.
I'm not surprised.
He's quite the psychological interest. We've actually run a couple of experiments thus far. I am capable of being affected by some types of hypnosis or other sensory input. But not all of it and not all the time. In terms of eating or otherwise taking in chemicals, the system doesn't really do that. I haven't found any kind of
soap or slime.
I haven't found any kind of substance that really disrupts my biological processes in any pleasant way.
I mean, it would make sense that it would be harder for you because your species has developed sort of this hive mind where, like, you'd sort of have to dose all of your bug selves at once in order for it to be effective in any way, I believe.
There is that. Mantis has talked a little bit about this. He remarked upon it in a similar way, that he basically have to hypnotize all of us at once.
Ah.
And,
that wouldn't be good for the ship.
It's just completely unfeasible.
Yeah.
The way he basically said it wouldn't be worth the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can detect, like, individual differences on an individual personage of me.
Right.
And so I can, like, enjoy that state. It's just, if I needed to override it, it would be so easy.
Gotcha.
Like, with one person who is under the influence of something, they're kind of stuck like that until it passes.
Yeah, until your body processes the actual chemicals and yada, yada.
Until they defeat the trance or whatever. With me,
we got a cat that keeps trying to interrupt.
Yep. With me, it's a little different. I basically, if I want to enjoy what's going on with that one part of me, I can kind of focus on that, but I'm always going to have the rest of me.
Right.
As a reminder. I have so many backup copies. So many.
So many.
And I want to say I'm a little bit jealous, because it sounds pretty fun, actually. To be drunk, to be high, to be hypnotized. To actually be stuck in that for a while, and that's where you are, and, it doesn't stop until it finally passes.
Right.
I don't mind how I experience things now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, like, it's one of those things, that, like, I don't focus too much on the differences between isopods and humans most of the time, especially since I've been both. I don't have to really think too much, like, oh my gosh, what is it like on that other grass over there that's slightly greener?
Right.
Because I've already been on that green grass. It's fine. It's more, the entheogens / hypnosis, the mind-altering state, the alteration of the mind. I experience that so much differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the places where I really perceive the difference between being an isopod and being a human.
Yeah.
Like, down here,
here being in Felix's body,
on
you mean?
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here in Felix's body, I have access to a drink that is alcoholic and has mugwort and wormwood in it. I have this herbal, and there are mind-altering substances in this, even though there are not entheogens.
Yeah.
Just the stuff in the citrus peels.
The limonene.
Yeah, so limonene, let's see, that has...
mood enhancer and anti-anxiety properties.
Yeah, so technically that should be affecting me.
Right.
But I feel this as an individual experience amongst many that I'm having currently.
Right.
And it does not override the rest of the experience.
Interesting. That is very fascinating. So you're, I guess, while you're being channeled here, you are basically adding this to your one of the bodies that are in your multitude of selves.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I have the experience of feeling the biology over here.
Mm-hmm.
And with a human, or maybe another biological being,
non-insectoid, yeah.
Yeah. The chemicals would carry over, the biology would carry over more, I believe. But it just can't carry over. Like, what I'm getting from the herbal here, there's a couple of receptors that are firing in my cortex.
Yeah.
That are, like, there's not even receptors, it's more like just processes. There's processes that are going on in my cortex in the isopod body to try to match what is happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the same. And it's almost extra effort.
Ah.
I don't consider it to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is like an interesting thing to experience.
Right.
For me, this is like a thought experiment.
Uh-huh.
And like with the entheogens from the drink, that's not carrying over at all.
Wow. Yeah, you are seeming very like calm, cool, collected, not really, I don't know, like knowing what is Felix has been drinking and eating and smoking before now. Like, you seem completely sober.
I probably seem way more sober than Felix does.
Yes.
Which I find really funny.
Yes. So, yeah. I guess I'm going to open the floor to you, because we did talk about, like, you might ask me some questions, or...
Yeah, so, it's like, I know that you've got psychic senses.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm here channeling in Felix versus, say, Mantis or Rob, do you notice any differences?
Not, like, it's kind of hard to describe. It's less about, like, noting that you are non-humanoid and more that you have a different, like, presence to me than, say, Mantis or Rob. Like, if one of you walked into a room and said, hey, I'd probably be able to identify who it was, but not because I'm sensing that, oh, it's Jules because he's a bug. It's Jules because of the way that he walks, talks, and acts. Like, I notice more of things that are closer to, like, personality cores or, like, I guess, soul markers than actual, like, body stuff. So, which is a bit harder to describe.
That makes sense, though, because I was asking about you as a psychic,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's the psychic senses that you're describing. I think those psychic senses are really important to hone. Most, not even just most humans, but most creatures, most people, are are used to taking their basic sensory input, the light that's coming in, the vibrations that are in the air, whatever flavors that you're picking up, and smells, all of that, and taking those physical, very very physical sensations, really your impressions of physics, and cobbling them together into a report on what is happening in reality.
Right.
And there are so many other senses. There's so many other things in reality that are happening that those senses don't necessarily pick up on. Like, most biological beings do not pick up on radio signals in a way that's actually interpretive.
Right.
Now we've got, say, whales and dolphins with their sonar. And I think that would be I don't consider it an equivalent, but it's a close approximation to radio.
Yeah. So something that I want to bring up is a scientific paper that I actually just read recently, in that, like, mice were found making ultrasonic noises that basically didn't fall into one of the three categories of, like, distress, greetings, or mating calls. And they found that it was actually ultrasonic to manipulate microparticles so they could smell them. So they were basically using them to sort of, like, bounce particles closer so they could smell them better, or like
rustling the air.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you have some sort of equivalent, because I know, like, I can't help but think that your antenna probably help with, like, the radio wave type of thing. So I'm wondering if you're, like, bouncing.
I'm actually very careful with the radio stuff. Now that, especially that there are biologicals on the ship that are not isopods, I have to take a lot of care with the radio stuff. It can cause a lot of damage. But also, it's really the heat of the signal that's the problem. I could actually light some stuff on fire. Like, I could set off ordnance, or make a few nuclear materials shoot off way too many protons.
Whoops. Yeah. Get those radioactive isotopes all excited and they start popping off.
Fire too much radio at the radioactive, it gets too active.
So you've had to sort of control that to begin with, because you mentioned like fuel changes. I'm assuming you're using some sort of radioactive fuel.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go too much into that. But basically, there's a fuel cycle.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you've already known how to control your radio.
I've got a pretty good sense of it, I will say that. I don't use radio as my main sense. It's actually kind of crude to do that. So there are some vibrational senses that I have that aren't radio. That's more of what the antenna are doing.
Gotcha. So it's like more
cat whiskers almost.
Sonic, like feeling air pressure changes, things like that.
Molecular vibrations.
Okay.
So it's kind of like how the vibe is in the air.
Vibes are bad.
And then there are actual psychic senses that I use.
Yeah.
I am a little bit more free to use my psychic senses than humans are. My cortex is shaped in a way that is not... I feel that the human brain actually gets in the way of its own psychic senses in self-defense, the way that it's designed. And my cortex doesn't have that / do that. But I also don't have, like, some basic human instincts that are packed up in psychic stuff.
Well, I mean, since you have to have senses of, like, your other bug selves and, like, your crew, I guess, it would make sense that you would be doing some sort of psychic work on a base level, just to create that sort of hive mind idea. But you're saying, like, you didn't have some basic human instincts?
Yeah.
Like,
so I'd say that I have a lot in common with any kind of hive creature that you have on this planet that's mostly going to be insectile. So wasps, ants, bees, all of that. And so the thing with a hive structure is that the survival is already built in because you're already a bunch of you. And so if one ant dies, it's important to the hive to know that. But that ant will probably go down fighting or doing its job. It will probably not hit a fight, flight, or freeze at all. That is not as important to the evolution of my species.
That's true, because it's not the individual consciousness ensuring its own survival, because you have that group.
In fact, the individual consciousness in a hive will ensure the hive's survival.
Right.
So the survival instincts in a hive-based creature are completely different than in an individual consciousness-based creature, because the individual consciousness-based creature, like, you specifically,
yes,
you Shadow, you need to survive.
Yes.
For various reasons. Often one would argue that you need to pass your genes on, but it's not really that you need to pass your genes on. It's just that your genes need the option of being around, and until then you need to protect them. Your body is a gene factory. So every let's see, mammals would do this, a lot of birds. Birds kind of go in a weird way because, like, they have their flocking mechanisms.
Right.
So the more group-based an animal is, like maybe a herd of animals would be a little bit different than this as well. They'd have instincts that are based more on protecting the herd as opposed to the individual.
Yeah.
The more herd-based they are, the less inclined they are to actually defend the individual. The more that the individual has value to the species, like, for instance, not just genetically, but your brain is going to protect itself. The rest of your body and its talents are going to protect themselves. All of those are individually of value.
Right.
And the human species works together socially.
Right.
All these different people agreeing with each other to do various things, and needing to get along with each other to actually combine those resources. I don't have to talk to myself to do that.
Right.
I just do shit all over the ship, and it happens.
Now, one of the things with a more individualized consciousness is that, like, I'd say in, like, humans particularly, they develop specific talents, like, for example, I'm able to crochet, and Felix, that body, is not. He hasn't tried, but he's able to do, like, art and stuff that, like, I can't do. Now, even though you are a hive mind / multiple body consciousness, are there specific, like, selves that are doing specific tasks because for some reason they're better at it, or, like...
There is variation within the bodies. Just let him do it.
Yeah. Oops, sorry for the noise. That was the cat.
There is variation within the bodies. So, if, like, for instance, a few of my selves have thicker carapaces, they might be more suited to doing nuclear fuel rotation.
Right.
If some of them have longer antennae, they might be more suited to doing certain sensory and communication-based things. So...
Okay, cat. You keep hitting
He's
the table.
so bad.
He's trying to get... This one cat in particular really likes you, Jules, and he's trying to do everything he can to get
show
your
off
attention.
in front of me.
Yes.
Yep. He's so bad.
So,
yeah, there's individual variation within the bodies, which means that they're more suited to certain tasks and they would be allocated to those. Now, when it comes to whether there are different talents, it is possible that one of my isopods would be better at knitting and one of them would be better at crocheting. And I might even have one that could do both.
Ooh.
The secret Satan.
Yes, that is quite an interesting one. The cat is still being annoying. We, executive producer, we are done with your notes.
So, I find it funny. He is trying to interact with me so much.
Yeah, unfortunately, our cats don't quite seem to understand that, like, sometimes when we're sitting here talking, we're actually talking on a podcast to the internet, and not just to each other.
Yeah, they're not cognizant of the greater scheme of things. If they were, I bet it'd be a very, very interesting podcast.
Oh my goodness.
So, by the way, I don't know if you know, but Felix can knit.
Really?
You had no idea?
I had no idea.
He can knit.
I think he's
slowly.
mentioned this like once.
Yes.
Yeah, that explains why he's always remarked on the speed in which I do things. Because, yeah, knitting does, from what I can tell, it takes a while to get fast at.
But yeah, for the record, you crochet and he knits. I find that very cute.
That is very cute.
So, let's see. I want to think about some things that are a little bit different than you have. I can grow an arm back.
Yeah.
You can't.
No.
I know that.
I'm like, what am I supposed to say? No, I can't, because I think you already know that.
So, one thing that happens with that, for instance, if you see any kind of creature that can do this, like various insects that can, right?
Yeah.
The new limb might be a little different than the one that was there before, and it'll definitely look, shinier and new.
Right.
And you know what? I'm gonna go get him. I'm gonna go get the cat.
Our executive producer cat
you.
is now playing with a toy in an attempt to get attention.
I got you.
You got him.
You have been
Yeah,
gotten.
you just need to cuddle him and maybe he will calm down.
It's
there
true.
we go.
Here. Did you need this? Did you need bug cuddles? He needed bug cuddles.
He likes you.
It's very cute. I like him.
He likes showing off for you. Especially.
I gave him a big thump.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's see, I can grow limbs back. It's all kind of the same substance.
I mean, with an exoskeleton, it's sort of like...
Now, one thing you'll notice in the portrait is that I am not symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime something grows or forms cellularly, the cells kind of just figure out where they want to go. It's kind of like looking at tree bark or individual veins on a leaf. They vary, but they're according to a standard pattern.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, if you could tell two crawfish apart, like, you would notice differences in them.
Right.
And I'm much the same way. Like, all of my selves, their face doesn't look like mine. It would look similar.
Right.
I don't have that thing where I'm like, well, all you humans look alike too. Like, you look different. You got different hair and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you saw like 5 of me next to each other, you'd be able to tell them apart.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have a lot of color variation differences? Like, I know there's some like isopods that have like spotting or like different colors and stuff.
Largely shades of brown, but like patterned variations.
Interesting.
I'm not really keen on. I am not sure what planet I am from in terms of my species, and so I don't know the original conditions under which my visuals actually evolved.
Right. Oh, I should ask how much you're able to see and stuff, because, like, with the compound eyes that most insectoids have.
Yeah, so I've got the main two eyes I use to see are actually the little ones that look like tiny spectacles in between the two big ones.
Interesting.
Those are the main target eyes. I can use any of the other ones as well. The big ones that most people would assume are my eyes are actually kind of an ocular sensory unit that processes all of the signals from the tiny ones.
Oh.
So I've got a lot of eyes I can look in different directions at once.
Wow.
It doesn't quite go compound like a fly's eye. Compound like a fly or a moth or other type of insect eye like that is basically all the images the same.
Right.
This I can, look in 8 directions at once or something like that.
That's really cool.
Part of that is because I've got so many cells to kind of keep track of and look at. So if, for instance, I was in the room with like 20 other me's, I could look at the ones that I really want to concentrate on automatically, look at all of them at once.
Yeah.
And that would help me think of them and be able to concentrate on them.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of, like, color vision, like...
Oh, color vision.
Like, can you see more into the infrared or ultraviolet? Like...
Oh, there's some... so I can, like, see gamma.
Mm-hmm.
I can,
that's really handy.
I can see rads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the color is actually a bit interpretive instead of set in stone. I almost have vision like in Predator. The Predator sees in the heat vision.
Yeah.
That's
That's infrared.
Yeah. It's similar to that, but with true infrared, you probably have dedicated colors for certain things.
Yeah.
Whereas this, like, it really varies.
Interesting.
Just depending on what's going on.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Sorry, bit of a yawn there. So yeah, anything else you want to share?
I'm really interested in psychic experiments.
Yeah.
The way that I communicate with other entities outside of my species is psychic in the first place. I find it interesting. I'm more aware of my psychic abilities than, like, say, humans have a lot of trouble being aware of their psychic abilities because the sensory world around them is pretty freaking deafening.
Yeah.
Whereas it's something that's a lot more upfront to me and a lot more, I'd say, real to me because it's like the psychic senses are the ones that I use to do quite a lot of my stuff.
Right.
And I find that cultural exchange very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that I have not had a lot of opportunities beyond you, Felix, and the people on my ship to really do these kinds of experiments.
Right.
Most other species that aren't isopods don't really sit around and play chess with us.
Aww. Well, I'm glad that you're getting that interspecies interaction, and, like, I'm sure that we're probably pretty amusing to you with our single, like, body consciousness and the problems and unique things that are inherent in that.
I have to be very careful because the senses that I have are actually capable of doing quite a lot to not just a human mind, but, like, pretty much any mind.
Mm-hmm.
And while that could be used as an advantage by, like, people of my species, if I hive a bunch of isopods and they go do their jobs and stuff, that's fine.
Yeah.
They're isopods, they'll get along. That hive thinking style works for the isopod species. But if I had, like, 2 humans that I like, just kind of conscripted into the hive and had them doing things as well, it would break down almost immediately.
Yeah.
You're just not built to do it like this.
Yeah. No, there's some like inner psychological things that would, I'm sure Mantis would probably talk more about it, but like there's probably some psychological and psychic things that would like instantly kick up in defense.
Yeah, humans have a very rich inner life. Like they have to have one to be able to keep up those fight, flight, and freeze mechanisms.
Yeah.
Kind of need their own inner monologues.
Yeah.
And I simply don't have that. I don't have to keep that up. So
you don't have to because you have so many like actual lives. Like it's interesting to think about the fact that like, you know, escapism is such a big thing where like people are reading books or playing video games where they're essentially trying to recreate a separate life from the one that they are currently experiencing because they have that single body consciousness, whereas you don't have to do that.
Like humans need to stay alert in some way. They need to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
They also kind of need to stay scared. You need to keep up your fight, flight, and freeze mechanisms. So you need to have those calibrated. You have to have that be input.
Yeah.
I don't have to have that. I don't have to keep up all of that brain stuff. So, like, I don't get bored like a human would. I could just keep on going, doing the same things over and over again, and it does not tax me.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why humans have trouble doing that is because they need to have a variety in their inner lives to keep training up their own innate abilities.
Yeah.
Just kind of invisibly and automatically.
That's very interesting. I've never thought about it that way. That, like, video games and stuff is to, like, sort of keep, you know, our inner lives, our senses of fight, flight, or freeze, our problem solving, all those kind of things, keep us in a sense of danger. Like, I mean, I'm thinking even of Minecraft. Like, a lot of people don't play on peaceful because the random encounter of monsters, even though we could control it, we decide not to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a lot of people find peaceful mode on Minecraft boring.
Yeah, the fun, in quotations, has to involve, like, encountering something unexpected.
Yeah.
Solving puzzles. And when you solve a puzzle, it's not fun if you've already solved it before and you've memorized the solution. It needs to be different each time for it to actually be interesting.
Yeah. Cool. So, anything else you want to share? Or can we get Felix back for, you know, his commentary?
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think I've expended all ordnance, as it were.
Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
This is one of the most interesting conversations I've had in my life.
Oh. So I'm very touched. Like, I'm glad that you think so, because, like, I'm obviously very fascinated in how your consciousness works, and I'm sure when next time we have you on a podcast, I'll probably have more questions, or, you know, we'll see.
I'm very welcome to coming back.
Yay!
Can I say something that's just not in any... I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Just go ahead and say it.
Mantis and Rob started up a new batch of Hooch as a little battle.
Yeah.
And I actually... I can go see it over there. And they're already a little bit different. Mm-hmm. They started with identical ingredients. It's an identical setup, but already the batches are a little bit different.
It's so fun.
And I really have been enjoying watching this whole play unfold.
Right.
When it comes to that. I love watching the science. I love watching everybody do these things.
Fun. Well, glad to have you here on the podcast, and glad to include you in our experimentation. I'm sure we'll have many fun conversations in the future. Definitely we'll have you back over to try some of the Hooch once it gets further along. 'Cause
yeah.
I'm pretty sure the first batch is gone.
I had.
You did.
I came over for a little bit.
Oh, good.
And I sipped some of Mantis's and some of Rob's. I remember talking to you about this because I prefer Rob's.
Yeah, you preferred Rob's. That's right.
I was the odd man out there.
Yes. So, but yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your perspective on things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing me over here to share all of the multifaceted perspective that I have. And thank you so much for sharing yours as well. I really like learning.
Yeah. It's always fun.
So I'm a be on my way.
Alrighty.
I'm a buzz off.
Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many bug jokes that, like, he has been saying, especially because of these things. And, like, just pointing out, you know, us humans are weird or something. So, Felix is coming back. Welcome back, Felix. How are you?
Less cognizant of the conversation that you just had than usually I am.
Well, yeah, because a lot of it was focused on non-anthropomorphic topics, so I'm not surprised. I'm sure this is going to be one that you're definitely going to listen back to.
Oh, if I wasn't recording this right now, I would already be listening back to it.
It's always fun. So, yeah. Any notes on how you feel since Jules has been in that body?
I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not the first time that he's had an extended stay over in my body and then I come back.
Right.
I usually feel pretty good after Jules has been in here. He's a very calming individual.
He is. He's very chill. Which is always nice.
Having him in here a while, and then coming back is kind of like all my, what's adrenaline? Is that an endorphin or is that something else? You know the chemicals that make you feel, like, anxious?
Yeah.
Well, they've had, like, a while to just sort of clear out and stop being produced for a little bit. It's like, having a system reset almost.
That's nice. Yeah. Because he was talking about with the multi-body consciousness, like, he can tell that, like, your body is being affected by things, but his consciousness is not trapped in that per se.
Yeah, he's like still got,
so he can just sort of wait it out.
I want to compare, like, because he was just now in here, I can remember the mouthfeel of this herbal for him, basically the flavor of this herbal for him versus the flavor that I'm getting.
Ooh, this is gonna be fun.
So he has, like, there's in this herbal I'm tasting like a lot of plant type matter, like the tang of the basil, kind of the tang of the burnt leaves almost. And he wasn't getting that. He had a much more mild taste.
Yes. Jules is left. I'm sorry, Kat. He is gone now.
So he wasn't picking up the same notes as I am. The plant matter tastes different to him. I think it almost tasted sweeter.
Interesting.
And so it almost sounds like his palate's reversed.
That's really cool. Like, that's one of the really fun things is that, like, you're able to pick up stuff like this. And I just realized that I put summoning instead of channeling on the title for the visualizer.
What is the title on the visualizer?
Summoning.
Just summoning?
Just BOP episode 7 summoning.
What? Okay. Alright.
I didn't really know.
This wasn't a summons.
Happen. No, it wasn't a summons. So, the cat is acting like it was a summons, and he's very disappointed.
Yeah, the cat was... I have not had a cat active like this during a podcast.
No.
So...
No, he was definitely trying to get Jules' attention, because for some reason, one of our cats really likes Jules. That's another reason why I'd be able to tell who's up is how the cats react to them.
You know what? He's the same cat that is always making all the noise when there's a bug in the room.
Oh, no.
He loves to chase bugs.
Yes.
And Jules is the biggest bug.
But he just wants to show off for that bug.
Yeah, he'll like meow up at the bugs that fly around,
come and play.
Like, hey, why don't you come down here and play with me? And so
yeah, he did go over and start playing with the toy. So yeah, maybe he's just trying to get the giant bug to play with him.
Yeah, that's what he's always dreamed of.
Oh man. So yeah, it's really interesting that the taste profile is different. Any other differences that you can pick up at this point? I know that you mentioned that like you sort of feel like you've had like a system clean out, refresh.
Like I just want to emphasize that like it'd probably be a good idea for me to have Jules in here for a regular period on regular intervals, mental health wise.
Interesting.
This is better than having a sertraline.
Wow.
So it's like a hour-long mental health vacation.
Yeah, he can just like let the body chill out. Because he doesn't have the survival like.
So I can tell you that any other like most of the people who channel into here, whenever they channel into here, they still have kind of the internal monologue of thoughts that my subconscious produces.
Right.
It'll often shift to more of their frequency or their vibe, but I deal with a lot of mental health stuff, and so I have unwanted thoughts and stuff. And he barely got any of that, if at all.
That's so interesting.
Like the internal monologue basically shut off for him.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking amazed, because that's actually one of the barriers I've been having as a channeler, is that it's hard for me to give the spirits the complete open mic experience.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of myself still in the way, but he's not even picking up on that.
That's so interesting. So channeling him more regularly would also make you a better channeler in general, because your body would get used to like not having someone that doesn't interact or even plug into that.
He has a completely different subconscious.
Yeah.
Like my subconscious basically responds to a human-like entity coming in and is like, okay, here, let me do some subconscious stuff for you. Whereas for him, it really didn't activate in nearly the same way.
That's interesting. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do some follow-up on this one.
Yeah, I really want to have both him and Mantis on to talk about some of the psychic and psychological stuff.
Yeah.
And like any other guests that want to weigh in on that. But those two.
Oh, yeah.
The bug guys.
One with a bug name and one with a bug face.
Yep.
Yes. So, yeah. Anything else you want to bring up in that, or are we about ready to wrap it up?
Be cool to bugs.
Be cool to bugs, but also don't feel too bad if you accidentally smush an ant.
If I smush a fruit fly or two, that's really getting in the way. I don't feel bad, but like before this podcast, I was drawing Jules's portrait, and there was a fruit fly that was kind of getting in the way, and I would kind of like swipe at it, sort of like subconsciously, but when I would do so, I'd think, I don't want to but no shade or anything. I don't want to. Like, nothing against bugs, it's just that you're literally getting in the way of my face.
Yeah.
I didn't want to squish a bug while drawing him.
Oh, man. So, anyways, to wrap things up, this has been another episode of Bad Occult Podcast on herbalism, herbal smoke blends, and channeling conversations with a bug.
Yeah, like, basically, what happens when the demon is not a human at all?
Yes.
And they're not even an Earth species.
Yes.
Like, what happens? I think you just keep an open mind ask questions, and like I think the asking questions thing is so important. Sometimes I'm a little afraid that I'm going to ask something rude. And I just kind of preface like, hey, I don't know if this is rude.
I have personally never encountered an entity that is upset at genuine questions. Like, they're usually amused and sort of like touched in a way.
So, I have.
You have.
Yes. Any entity that has a reason not to answer your questions.
Ah, yeah.
Anyone who has a reason to get defensive. And so it's like, it's not that there are no stupid questions. It's just that there are some defensive entities.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do end up kind of running into something that trips a social moray.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know it. In Homestuck, they've got the buckets. And that's just offensive to the trolls to see at all, to even talk about.
To even mention. Don't mention the bucket.
So, you have a pail. How dare you have a pail in plain view? Don't you put that somewhere more protected than that? So, I haven't really run too hard into that.
Yeah.
But I guess really ask the question, and if there is offense, then just deal with it.
I mean, I wouldn't even ask if it was rude or preface it. How an entity responds to a question says a lot about the entity.
Yeah. It's there's some things where I would kind of ask, hey, I don't know how you like talking about reproduction or something, but I am kind of curious if you want to go into it.
Right.
And I think that's pretty much how to handle it. If they get really offended, it could mean a lot of different things. Individuals vary.
Yeah.
But even when you ask a question, there's the risk that somebody could get upset.
Yeah.
But it's still worth asking the question.
Definitely. So, anything else?
I think that's it.
Right.
Next podcast, I think we'll have a few more updates on what it is that we're doing with our current projects.
Yes. So, I will mention you can contact us on Occult Advice on tumblr.com. We have an Ask box that's open for that if you do have a Tumblr account. If you want it to be more of a one-on-one conversation, we do have badoccultadvice@gmail.com. If you don't have a Tumblr account, if you don't feel comfortable sending an ask, if your ask has been sent 15 times and we haven't responded to it, it's probably because Tumblr ate it. So, you can reach out via email as well.
I haven't really thought about it, but I guess we are open to questions that are for specific individuals that get summoned. If you have a question for Jules about isopod stuff or just about how cool he is, please go ahead and ask.
Yeah, please. Any of them. If you have requests for, specific episode topics, if you have questions for, us, questions for any of the entities that we've introduced, requests for entities that we may consider interviewing at some point, maybe. Feel free to send that in. We also have the podcast live on Twitch on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The video audio backups are on YouTube on Occult Advice. We have a specific playlist for that. We also have audio only versions on Spotify, Apple, and Substack. Speaking of Substack, do we have an update on that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I've been kind of focused on other things this weekend. I think this is the week.
Cool. Great. We will have a glut of episodes that will eventually come out. And then we are still working on Etsy, the Occult Apothecary. Go ahead and give us a like. Follow the shop if you'd like to know when we're out of vacation mode. We are going to be offering things like, dried herbs or berries, leaves, twigs, stuff that we sustainably harvest in the wild. We're also going to be working on some herbal blends that you use at your discretion.
However you want.
However you want. Incense blend with charcoal,
it's another thing that you can do that we haven't really mentioned?
What?
You can run a bath and put the herbs in the bath.
Yeah.
Put them in a little mesh bag if you don't want them getting all over your body.
Yeah.
That's, you basically, you bathe in the tea.
Yeah. Herbal blends. Rob has also said that he is willing to do Grand Tableau Lenormand readings for people, so that's also going to be something that will be available once we get the apothecary up and running. If you have any questions about that, just keep an eye on the Etsy shop. All right.
And that's it.
This has been episode 7, Not Summoning.
Love a bug.
Love a bug. Say hello to the next local bug that you see. And yeah. That's it.
Buzzing off.
Buzzing off.